folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a good October 30th. Tomorrow's Halloween. Welcome to The Creative Mind. It's the new stream where I'm going to talk primarily about creativity, how to enhance your creativity, what creativity is. Today I'm going to talk about what creativity is to a large extent. Of course, if you don't have my creativity manual, it's really about creative processes. I'm going to go ahead and link that for you. You also get that book, if you are new to the Patreon, you get that book for free. Plus, you will get a new book every single month. For the month of November, it's a book that most of you have not read. I think there's only been a couple of people who've ever read it. And I'll talk a little bit about this as we get deeper into it because Kindle Vela is shutting down. If you're not on the mailing list, that announcement went out. So that's The Bright Children. I'll link that in case you have Kindle Vela tokens and you want to actually buy that. I'll go ahead and link that for you. Otherwise, you can get it for free as part of the November Patreon benefits. Thank you, Kat. You can now go off and play. We don't need the cat in here. In fact, it is Halloween, so why don't we put on the hat? Let's put on the wizard hat. I should take my hearing aid off. That's a little bit better. The hearing aid off there. Okay. So yes, you will get that as part of your member benefits with Patreon, along with Keys to Prolific Creativity. And if you join now, you can actually get two books because you'll get October's book, which is it's not Sorcerer's Blood. That one you already got for free. If you were a member of Patreon or Substack, if you were a paid member of either one of those, you already got Sorcerer's Blood for free. But if you don't have Sorcerer's Blood, you can buy it. It's 99 cents. Pretty cheap. So I'll go ahead and link that. And if you did read it, as part of live, please drop a couple stars or review. I haven't really promoted that story very much, and so there's only like 4 ratings or reviews for that particular story because most people got it either they wanted to read it, they either watched me do it live, or they got it as part of their Patreon benefits. So, but if you did read it, please do go ahead and drop a review. That's always super helpful for me. So Kindle Vela is dying. I'll start with this announcement before I get to the meat of the content for the stream, because it's important to think about, some business stuff with publishing. This live stream, or this series of live streams that I'm going to do through the end of the year, is not going to focus intensely on the publishing industry, which is part of one of the things I do. So I'll talk about it a little bit, and indeed something with this, but it's going to focus on multiple different disciplines. That's why I like to talk about creativities. I do exist on several different disciplines. You can listen to my music, for instance, which you heard at the beginning of the show. Sorry for the slight delay in getting things really rolling here. Just had to clean up a couple of things before I could begin the stream. So yes, I work in several different disciplines, and so creativity, I've learned how creative processes are the same across most of those disciplines and what sort of things qualify as creative. But anyway, back to Kindle Vela. Kindle Vela will be gone in February 2025. If you don't know what Kindle Vela is, you're not alone. In fact, most people seem to still not know what it was. The idea behind Kindle Vela was to provide authors a serial fiction platform and provide readers a way to access serial fiction that they might want to read. And so there's a number of sites that use a serial fiction format in order to sell the products. Some of these there's webtoon ones. There's like TappyToon. There's Webtoon. There's just some different sites that allow people to spend tokens to buy like individual chapters or individual bits of a story as it's being produced, as it's being written. So as a writer, there's a big advantage to a platform like that, namely that you can be interacting with an audience even before you're able to complete the project, before you're able to complete a book and publish it. As a reader, there's some interesting things. You might find something new. There might be something there that's a little bit different. You can get the excitement of ongoing releases the way that you would with TV shows of yore. But people didn't really get on the platform. It didn't attract a lot of new readers. What it really only worked for were authors that had a very large pre-established following and were able to persuade a big portion of that following to buy into Kindle Vela in order to access their book. So what people did is they put an entire book onto Kindle Vela. They would put a whole book, just split up into 50 different parts. And for authors, they did the math and they're like, if I can sell 50 of these parts, I'll actually make more money than if I just sold an ebook. So they leveraged their big platforms to get their readers to come in and read their new work on Kindle Vela, some new kind of book that they hadn't put out yet. And I did it too. Like Bright Children was on there, and there was a handful of people who read it. I think looking at the page for it, there was 47 people who gave it a thumbs up. Very nice. I don't think I made much money on it. There were no comments on anything, right? So you can make comments on the posts. It just didn't end up working out. Readers were not excited to do that. What most Amazon readers wanted was to buy complete books. In fact, that's what most consumers want from the fiction market, is they want to buy an entire book. And some of these sites that are able to monetize serial fiction with maybe a younger audience. If you gave the younger audience the option of just buying the book for less money, they probably would, right? Do you want to read the manga one chapter at a time online, or do you just want to buy a tankobon for less money? Most people who have any sense would buy the tankobon, or you are trying to get a readership that's not going to want to pay any money, in which case, why do you want to cultivate that readership as an author, right? A readership that's not interested in buying any products. Well, you probably wouldn't. So Kindle Vela was more or less dead on arrival. As soon as it launched, the person who had created it got promoted into Amazon, and it just kind of got left on the vine to die. They didn't promote it. They didn't try to get people onto it. There's no heavy attempt to generate an audience for it. So a lot of authors like me thought, well, there's an optionality to it in that if I put a story on it, I could find new readers that I don't already have. Turns out those readers didn't show up. Like I said, it was just people who are leveraging their existing audience to buy tokens in order to access their book. Those are the only people that had any success on the platform. And then if you want to later, you can take your book off of it and publish it. As time went on, Amazon wised up to this and made it almost impossible to take your books off of Vela. So one of the reasons that Bright Children is still on Vela is that I would have to have a 3-week-long conversation with support to get it unpublished. You used to be able to just unpublish it, and then you could go and sell the ebook. So Sorcerer's Blood is actually still on there if you wanted to buy it with tokens, but it's better to buy the ebook. I tested this out this year because it seemed like no one was at the wheel, and nobody was really, monitoring this. So I put Sorcerer's Blood out as a regular ebook. People didn't really buy it as an ebook because they got it also through Patreon. So they've gotten it, my audience has gotten it several different methods. They watched me write it live, or they read it on Substack, or they got it on Vela maybe. But, I just showed how that process looked because I thought it would be good to demonstrate that. I just tested it out. Nope, nobody's listening. So officially now, as of November, I think just now, you can just put your stuff out as an ebook. So I'll do that with Bright Children, but it'll be available first to patrons, and then later we'll have that book come out. That's actually a part 1 of 3, and so the other reason that I kind of held off on, going through all the trouble of unpublishing it, putting it out as an ebook, which is the format people would actually read, was I really wanted to have the next few books. I don't like writing a book 1 and not having more stuff coming pretty soon. So that's why that. Same thing with the next 3 Moonsong books. Is the first 3 are a trilogy, and they end on a note where you've succeeded at the original plot goals. So the next 3 are a different kind of odyssey and a different kind of adventure. And so I wanted to have all of those ready to go before I started publishing them, so that, first of all, you're not stressed trying to like scramble to write the next book in the series, hoping readers don't forget about it. It's like, nah, it's all ready to go. And then you can just kind of focus on the release and the publication part of what you're doing for that. So anyway, that's Kindle Vela. It is dead now. So you can read stuff on Kindle Vela still till February. So if you were one of those people that bought tokens and you're looking for something to spend them on, then by all means, you can read Bright Children there. There's also another one called Lawless Darkness that I never finished publishing on the platform. So that one will just come out as an ebook as well. And so will Sorcerer's Blood is already out as a regular ebook and a paperback. In fact, I'm not sure what the paperback is. Yeah. So there's Swordmaster has a good point. There's some drawbacks to the token model, such as normal 20-page manga might have one cliffhanger at the end. But if one chapter is split into 4 pieces for tokens, it now has 4 cliffhangers. Well, that's a negative to the story, but you may want to write that way anyway. Like, I purposefully tried when writing, for instance, Muramasa, was to have a plot point of some kind happen about every 1,000 words, every 2 pages. So some kind of, not a cliffhanger, but some kind of thing happened. Tension got added, things changed direction. If one thing resolved, another thing was then added to create tension. I tried to have that happen about every 2 pages is the way I kind of paced the book. That's the way I thought about pacing for that book. So that could improve the work. But I think most readers pick up on that and they get annoyed after a while, or they get tired of it. They want to feel like it's driving towards a conclusion. And if you just give them the option of buying a complete thing, they're probably going to do it unless they're like, well, I only want to pay a quarter to read 2 of the stories and see if they're good, and then maybe I'll pay more. Some people say serial fiction platforms like Royal Road and Wattpad, which is what Kindle Vela was kind of trying to ape, have been successful. But the question is whether they're successful for the creators on them. That is a question too, because there may be a lot of people on there reading things, but does that translate into an ability for the creator to make any kind of money or develop any kind of valuable audience? This is a question for YouTube, right? As well. We're on YouTube. We're on a bunch of other platforms right now too, because of Restream, which I haven't given a review of that service, but in general, I would say it's good if you're looking to, like, I want to be on Twitch and YouTube and X and Facebook. It works really good for that. So I'm on all of those platforms right now, and it works good. But on YouTube, right, you can be on YouTube. How does that make money, right? You make money on ads. So as a creator, you can make money just by having people view the videos, and then you can sell things on the videos, like you can sell books, or you can sell a Patreon subscription, or I can say, hey, join my mailing list and you get a free copy of this book, Demon Ex Machina. dvspress.com/list. Make sure you're on the mailing list. You get a free copy of that. So I could sell things through YouTube. Can I really sell things through Wattpad? I don't know if I can. I don't know that much about it. And who's buying it? If the readership is all 14-year-old girls, that's great, but how are you getting money out of them? It's maybe a crass thing to think about as we're thinking of artists, but it's something that's worth practically considering. Will that audience develop into an audience that's going to buy your books later? Maybe not, So you can try it, right? You could try Royal Road. There's an optionality there. Like, I can try that. I can go put a book on it. But the audience that I have now, based on like the Kindle Vela experience, is really like, I just want to buy your books. So the question is whether there would be new people that would read it on Royal Road or not. Maybe, maybe not. So, people build an audience there, then publish to Amazon. I don't know how much money they make doing that, though. That's always a question. It's a question with these sorts of things. Let's get some more music going here. All right. They add a little advertisement. There we go. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about creativity, the main topic for today. So, what is creativity? Creativity is the ability to create things that are new, that don't exist yet. Thinking about it in a multidisciplinary approach, I'm not just talking about art. The things that I will talk about would also apply to inventing a new technology. Inventing things would be creativity. Same thing with creating things that are necessary and people need. Creating chairs, designing chairs, creating tables, right? Building computers, right? There's creativity that's involved in all of the things that we do that create the human environment that we live in and we operate in and we exist in and we enjoy. There are five things that go into creativity. These are not an order of things, but some of these things tend to happen earlier in the process than others. Because depending on what you're doing, you may start with one of these, but all of them have to be included for you to actually create something out of it. So the first one is inspiration. Inspiration is an idea. It's an idea of something that needs to be created, something that needs to exist that doesn't really exist now. It could be a story. You're inspired. You have a vision of a story. You have a painting in mind. In fact, I'm gonna move some art around here in just a second before I continue, because we'll talk about aesthetics here in a minute. Here, I'm gonna put this over here. This is relevant to some of the things I'll talk about in a minute. Everybody's favorite icon here. All right. So, when it comes to creativity, these are the 5 things. I'll just list the 5 things and then I'll go through them. Number 1 is inspiration. Number 2 is will, the will. Number 3 is skill. Number 4 is effort. And number 5 is valuation. So let me go through each of those things. Inspiration is the idea. It's the idea of the thing which needs to exist. Okay? I'm inspired. I have an idea. Maybe I have an idea for a piece of art, right? For what it's supposed to look like. Maybe I have an idea for music that I'm hearing in my ears. It doesn't necessarily have to be fully realized, but we have an idea of a thing. We've conceived of the thing in our minds. That's the inspiration. A lot of times people say inspiration when they are responding to art. This art inspired me. Well, the inspiration is really the idea, right? So you're responding to the art by having a new idea. If art doesn't cause you to have any ideas, then it didn't inspire you, right? So it's the idea that is the inspiration, okay? It's the idea. It could be a response, or it's almost always a response to something else in the world. You see a squirrel, you imagine a story from the perspective of the squirrel, you're inspired to write a story of a squirrel, okay? So the next one is the will. Will can mean so many things when we're talking about philosophy and art. So the will is the desire to make it. It is you acting upon that inspiration to do something in the world. You're willing it to exist. You are going to do something. So that's the motion, is the will, right? The desire, the movement towards whatever you are conceiving of. Number 3 is the skill. This is how you get there. These are the techniques that you use to create what you are imagining. The skill could be painting techniques. It could be writing techniques. It could be playing music techniques. On the invention side, the skill could be how you're going to assemble the parts to make an invention. You have to have the skill to do that. You have to know how to wire things if you're an electrical engineer. That's the skill element. Number 4 is the effort. It's the doing. This tends to happen over a long period of time. You're not creative if you get inspired. You have an idea, you're like, I'm going to make it happen. And then you sit down and you don't do anything. You haven't created. So you have to do. There's an action of the body that creates the thing that we're talking about. Creation always happens through the body. It's not purely a mental exercise. If it's purely mental, then it doesn't exist outside the mind and just doesn't exist. Okay. So the effort is what makes it real. It's what changes it from an idea within the mind to a thing that exists. Number 5, the valuation. What is the valuation? Valuation is determining why that thing exists, what its value is, what its purpose is, what it means, what it points to. Now, I picked a particular order for these because in our mind, there's lots of things that go into being creative or creating a thing. It's the motion, it's the effort that makes it exist. And the valuation is determining whether we have met the idea, whether we have fulfilled the inspiration. And sometimes valuation can happen first, right? Like if I'm writing to market, I start with valuation, which is what do people want to read? What do people want to read? I come up with, I go do some market research, I look at some genres, I figure out that there's a lot of people who want to read military sci-fi. And there's not enough books in the military sci-fi genre, so I decide to write one, and I'm going to include the tropes that I think people already like. I'm exercising valuation with that. This is fulfilling a purpose. It's trying to fulfill a need in other people. This is the same thing with invention. It would be great if there was a thing that did this thing, that fulfilled this need, that solved this problem. What if I could make something where like the water automatically gets on the grass to make it grow? What have I invented? Well, I've conceived of a sprinkler system. Then you have to design it and install it and make it work, right? So you're fulfilling a need though. So that's the valuation. The valuation can also be looking at the art and saying, well, is it good? Is it bad? Is it beautiful? Is it ugly? Does it point to the good or does it point to something else? Is it disruptive? Is it inspiring other people? And what does it inspire them to think of? You know, art can be part of a dialogue. It can inspire people to do something that isn't what we think of as art, right? If you're inspired to go to church, you get this idea that I should go to church, and then your will makes you do it, right? You will to go to church and you make the effort to go to it. It's not exactly creative to go to church, but it can be part of inspiration. You can inspire people to fix their health. You know, you can inspire them to go to the gym. You can inspire them to make other art. This happens a lot with artists, is they're experiencing art in one medium, and then they think, oh, I'm imagining this sound in another medium, or maybe in the same medium. They get inspired to do something new. Do you always have to act on inspiration? The answer is no. And in fact, if you try to act on every inspiration, you'll probably never finish anything. That's why the effort part comes into play. If you look at my creativity manual, Keys to Prolific Creativity, the goal of it is to make you productive and prolific with your creative endeavors. And to that end, I wrote a manual on the process of being creative rather than writing something like this, like a storycraft manual, which I have lots of content for that, and maybe eventually I'll publish that book. I don't know. But I feel like it's much less needed than a manual for helping people to have work habits that are better. Because the truth is, all of those 5 things require you to have a process that allows you to work. If you want to complete your projects, that is, if you want to actually create something, you have to work. And in order to work, you have to have time to work. In order to have time to work, you have to have a schedule that allows you to work. And you want that time that you spend working to be as maximally productive as possible, so you can produce more art of higher quality. That's really what this manual is targeting. If you're just inspired and you never work on it, then you're not really creative. So people are like, I'm creative. It's like, well, let me show me some cool stuff you've done. They're like, I haven't done anything. Well, then you're not actually creative. You're a person that's inspired, but you're not creative. You're not creative till you do it. So that's the problem that I noticed across the board with almost everyone. That, you know, we're talking hundreds of students, maybe thousands of students that I've had over the course of my lifetime. Their main problem was that they just were not doing the work right. Now, do they need to build skills up? Yes. Would the Storycraft manual help a little bit with skills? It would, but to be honest, you're going to get a lot more skill out of practice, and the practice just requires the effort. So you have to practice being creative just like anything else. So if you manage your creative process, yeah, the first time you do something, it may not be that good, but you learn, you build the skills by doing it. If you think of someone like Thomas Edison, he didn't start by going, I'm imagining a video camera or whatever crazy invention he had. It's like he built up the skills to design more complex things like a phonograph, that cylinder phonograph, out of earlier ideas and earlier inventions and practice making electronics and dealing with all the things he dealt with. It's the same thing with Tesla or any other famous inventor that you can think of, is that those things, the skills come out of practice, believe it or not. It comes out of lots of tinkering and not as much out of a book. There was no book that made Thomas Edison just conceive of the ideas he had, right? There was no book that said, maybe someone should make a phonograph. No, he had the idea, and then he had to figure out how to make it real, and he had to use the skills that he developed from a lifetime of inventing and tinkering in order to do that. So it works outside the art realm as well to create things. Mostly we're talking about in the art realm. We're talking about music, art, books, movies, comics, games, right? We're talking about things that are in that general sphere of art. The main problem is people are just not working on it. They're just not spending the time. They're not getting the practice in. So they never develop the skills that are necessary to fulfill their vision, to make their inspiration get transformed from an idea into something that's really good that other people want and care about. Okay, so those are the 5 things. Inspiration, you have the will, right? You have effort. You have to have effort that pushes it forward. You have to have skill. I think I reversed those 2. And then you have to have valuation. The valuation is really important. So if we look at those 5 things and we apply them to certain kinds of art, we can see that we actually end up questioning whether those things are creative at all, to what extent they are creative, and that then brings us to the question of whether those things are actually art. So if we look at something like aleatoric art, something that's random art. So is there an inspiration? It's doubtful that there's any inspiration, because if you're leaving it up to chance, then you're not actually trying to fulfill a vision. The inspiration is merely what would happen if I made chance music or chance art. So it's not inspiration as we normally think of it. There's no idea, there's no vision, there's no wish there, deep in the heart. The will, is there a will involved in it? Not really. I mean, you're not really willing a thing to exist if you're giving it over to random chance. There's no will involved in it, except the will to press the button to generate random things. Is there skill involved? Most people would say there's not skill involved. There may be a small amount of skill. If you're doing serial music, you're designing a serial system that will produce the music. So there's some skill involved in that. But is it the same kind of skill that Bach uses for his music? No. Is it the same kind of skill that Rembrandt used for his paintings? The answer is no, right? So the skill is low. Effort. Is there effort in aleatoric music? Very little. Taking, putting rice and ink and throwing it on staff paper on the wall and making that the notes, which is, I had a composition teacher that did that. That's not a lot of effort. That's a very small amount of effort. So when we look at the final product with something like aleatoric art, and then valuation, does it serve a purpose? Does it make anyone go, that's beautiful? No, not really. So when we look at the valuation of it, it serves no purpose. It required no skill. It required no effort. There was no inspiration for it. Is it even art? It's on the very marginal edge of what we would really think of as art, because those things are very low. And that's why people tend to look really down on modern art, is because they perceive that it's not a very creative function. It's just not very creative. You're not being very creative when you do abstract things. You're just not. There's an understanding that if it's concrete, if I can look at the image and understand it, that it's actually more creative than just being abstract expressionism, as very, very little creativity involved in it. Very little. Compared to the high art of yesteryear, made by masters utilizing their skill. Okay, so when we are making that valuation, when we're comparing those things, we can see that things like modern art are very much, or postmodern art really is what I'm talking about, postmodern art. It's very much on the edge of what we can even consider art, and it is not very creative. So yeah, should you respect postmodern artists? Not as creatives, because they're not very creative. That's just the real thing. When we do the proper valuation, it's not. Valuation can also include evaluating aesthetics. So let me transition over to a really important story that happened the last couple days, which is Luce, or Luce. I think it's Luce, right? This little mascot that the Vatican unveiled for like a Japanese synod. And it's a little anime-inspired mascot. I'll look it up really quick for you guys. And then we'll talk about it. Because a lot of people were really missing the boat on what this little thing was. And let me find it. Is it down here somewhere? Yeah. All right. Here she is. Here's Luce. Okay. Now, this is the original design. She has scallop shells in her eyes for like the reflections of her pupils. She's got a pilgrim staff. This is a particular kind of rosary that, if it wasn't invented by Bishop Sheen, Fulton Sheen, then I'm not sure. But it's the World Rosary. It's not a rainbow rosary. And she's in a raincoat because she's a pilgrim. She's making a pilgrimage. This is a pilgrim staff. Her boots are muddy because she's been traveling. Okay, so this is Luce. Now, lots of people, and I hate to like throw like boomer stuff out, like the boomers, but generally older people did not understand what the heck this was about. They showed a little statue. Let's see if I can find the little statue for you guys. And then we'll look at all the insane amount of art. Okay, here's the little statue. She's very cute, okay? So here's this cute little statue of Luce. She's a little mascot. She's got this little pilgrimage thing on her coat. She's got the World Rosary to pray for all the people of the world. And her muddy boots. Okay. People are like, this is so childish. Where's our high Catholic art? It's like high Catholic art. That's not what this is. This is a cute mascot. And the response has been actually way stronger than I ever could have imagined. The mimetic response is actually overwhelming. So let's take a look at some of the art, right? Here's Cleric Luce, right? Here she is. Artists all over the world were inspired to take that design and do a spin on it and make art out of it. And make art that would inspire people maybe to go to church, or inspire people to, this one. And the thing about a lot of, especially mimetic art, is that something like this, a person would look at this and, if they're a super serious guy, would think it's rather sacrilegious without missing the point of what's going on here. This is a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with the powerful stand user, right? I kind of missed that this is a dialogue about the church. It's inspiring people to think about the church. It's inspiring people to think about Christ and these sorts of things. And even the broader discussion of like, what should our aesthetics be, is also valuable in this context. So the valuation is producing lots of great discussion and inspiring lots of people to think about, what should art of the Catholic Church actually look like? Should it be really serious, or should it be something cute? Can it be playful, or should we just eliminate all kinds of playful thoughts and joys and childlike love of things when we are looking at art? Now keep in mind, I think this conversation is really valuable. Now let's see if I'll turn the camera just a little bit. Okay, so people love this icon. People love this icon of the Theotokos, of the Virgin Mary with baby Jesus in this anime style. This is a takeoff of a really famous icon that I think is still at the Vatican, called Our Lady of Perpetual Help. But there's many similar icons painted all over the world that aren't, it's not like copying, but it's a copy of it done in this style. Like the angels have this anime aesthetic with the larger eyes, the reflections on the eyes, the smaller mouth, the very minimal nose, the expressive eyebrows, all of that stuff that goes into making a cartoonish kind of anime inspiration. I get so many comments about this. Where can I get it? I don't think you can still buy it from and I'll link it, I can link it, but I don't think you can still buy it. You have to find some other way to get it from the original artist. Okay. But it's cool. It inspired lots of people to talk and think about it. So did it serve a valuation purpose when we're valuing it, when we are making a valuation? What's the valuation here? Well, people say it's beautiful. All right, they're making a value judgment. It's beautiful art. I love it. I want to see it. It inspires me. It makes me think of Mary. It makes me think of the incarnation. This iconic style, does it belong on an icon? Well, there are many Eastern Orthodox people, and I've gotten some really hateful comments from some terminally online orthobros about this icon, because they think all icons should use iconographic styles from the 9th century. That's just what they think iconography should be. It should be 9th century, and you should never get off that train. That's when we're getting off the train. We're getting off the art train in the 9th century, and that's all religious art needs to be that. There's actually multiple styles within iconography, but iconography as an aesthetic system points to something. It points to the meaning behind what you're depicting. And so to that extent, a lot of people, when they're, kind of engaging in apologetics for Eastern iconography, whether it's Eastern Catholicism or it's one of the Orthodox churches, even Ethiopian Orthodox, which we could talk about too. We want it to not be realistic because we're looking at an idea. We're looking at the inspiration of it. And so it should be a little bit unrealistic. In fact, there's some people who say Christ should not look like a baby. And you'll see often Christ depicted, and he looks like a shrunk down adult. So they don't want to depict him looking like an innocent baby. Whereas on the Catholic side, they will happily depict Jesus as an innocent, perfect baby because that was the state that he was in. And it's a good state to think of him. The incarnation of him as a child was fully human. It's embracing the human side of him as well. So what does the aesthetic of the very realistic baby point to? It points to Christ's full humanity. What is drawing him as like a shrunk down adult do? Well, it really points to his divinity. Like, there's not wrong to do it with the more traditional style, or the style that more artists have embraced in the East over time, because I don't want to say that there's no one who ever breaks with that tradition or does it a little differently, right? But is what are you pointing to? Sometimes you're pointing to different things. You're pointing to Christ's full humanity and his innocence and his birth that's like us, or you're pointing toward his divinity. He was born fully God, right? So the meaning behind many of the details in icons is deep. If you see an icon of a saint, maybe an apostle, and he's holding up a cross, that means he was a martyr. He died. He was murdered for the faith. Those things have a deep meaning. Same thing if you look at stained glass. So stained glass has an iconographic style. There's a valuation behind the skills, behind the techniques that bring it about. That's really important to think about. Same thing with Catholic statuary. You can make the same argument for Mormon iconography. You can look at what symbols they use in that. You can look at what is used in Protestant art to the extent that they think about it iconographically. Most Protestant art, they don't think about it iconographically. It's kind of left to more traditional strains. If we look at Eastern, not just Eastern Orthodox stuff, but Ethiopian and Japanese icons, let's actually talk about that a minute. So I'll look a couple of those up. We just type in Ethiopian icons. Let's take a look at some, because I think it's really cool to look at these. I believe this is St. George, right? He's killing the dragon of sin. He's depicted as an African. Here's Mary and Jesus, the incarnation. He's depicted as an African. Mary is depicted as an African. Not only as an African, but in a particularly African style. You notice the way that they draw the eyes. They're oversized. The irises fill up the eye, much like an anime character, and are dark, without a differentiation really between the iris and the pupil. That's part of this style. Does this mean Christ was African? No. Is it bad that we're depicting Christ as an African when we know that he wasn't African? We know that he was a Jewish Eastern Mediterranean, right? No, I don't think so. Because this also points to something that's true about Christ, which is his humanity, which is that he's not just the Savior. He's not just King of the Jews. He's the King of all people. So generally, there's a lot of embrace of and display of icons from other cultures that draw the saints, draw Jesus as a reflection of themselves, of the way they look and the people that they see around them. You have to think a pre-modern person in a church in Africa probably doesn't see very many people from the Levant. So they're not going to draw or attempt to draw that person as a person they've never seen. They draw the people looking like the people around them. And this was always the complaint with like Western Europeans drawing blue-eyed Jesus or something, complaining about that, which it's actually kind of a rare thing that you would see. Like, there's not too many blue-eyed Jesuses that I've seen, but even that's the same expression, is like, we're drawing someone that looks like the people around me, and he is like the people around you, right? He's the Savior for all. He's not, he had a particular place, time, body, and he looked a certain way because he was an individual human being. But what does that point to? It points towards his universality as the Savior for all, right? Same idea. These are very severe, a little bit more severe looking. This, to me, is very Eastern Orthodox looking, but again, he's going to have a little bit more African traits. This is John the Baptist with the hair shirt, right? Baptizing Jesus, and this is the Holy Spirit alighting on him. Now you see the hand of God above. This is my son, with him I'm well pleased. Sometimes you're not supposed to draw the Father, right? You're not supposed to actually depict the Father. Why? There's a lot of layers that get into that. I'm not going to get into that today. Let's look at some Japanese iconography real quick, too. Yeah. Let's take a look at some of these. These are good, too. All right, so here's the Annunciation. Here's Mary being told she's going to give birth to the Savior. The angel is drawn looking Japanese. Mary's drawn looking Japanese, right? Is this wrong because we know Mary was from a particular geographic location and had a very particular genetic ancestry and looked a certain way? No, because again, the new Ark of the Covenant is for all. It's not just for one. You find pictures like this. Historical ones are harder to find because a lot of them were suppressed. But here's an iconographic style. It's interesting to think about. What does this point to? People draw things around them. It's supposed to be valuable and inspiring for the people that are around them as well. And the people who are looking at it are reminded first that Christ is like them, not Christ as some foreign person. That's my take on it Anyway, the people who are like, Luce is devilish and bad, well, they're reaching, in my opinion. And the people who are like, it's childish and stupid, it's like, this has unleashed the biggest mimetic force I've ever seen on Twitter. Sometimes people are silly, right? Like, this is a takeoff of Helsing, but other times people are a little more serious about it. They've created animations. I've never seen this amount of insane art as a response. Here's Mary embracing Luce. Every artist jumped on Twitter to make their own rendition of this, and to defend the choice or to just use it as an opportunity to make art that points towards something they care about. This is a lot of these are mimetic. We're talking in kind of internet symbols for a lot of this. So is it bad that they did this? I don't think so. I think you just look at the results and be like, it inspired thousands of people to make their own art, to make art in a style of it, right? Here's my favorite St. Catherine of Siena in the Luce style. Some people making AI art of it. Some people making their own art of it. So here's some pixel art of it. Someone making up a fake game. This is AI. But it's an interesting rendition. Actually, that brings me to another question. How do we evaluate? What's the valuation of AI art? So I think this is also a very, very, very good experiment to think about with this. Is that AI art? Is there inspiration? There's a little bit, right? Because you are. I just lost all of the comments. All the comments disappeared right now, so I'm sorry for that. Let me see if I can hop into YouTube and look at at least the YouTube comments. So all the comments on Restream disappeared. Things sometimes don't work that. Sometimes things don't work perfectly. Got to switch accounts here. Get back in my main account. Back over in my live thing here. Maybe I can see the chat. I got a chat replay going. Yes, I do. Awesome. Okay. Do they get mad at the kids if they don't draw Jesus in perfect 9th century art too? They might be scolded for drawing him at all. I don't know. It depends. In my experience, real life Orthodox people are not that bent out of shape about this kind of stuff. And it's mostly really terminally online people. It's the same thing with the Catholic side. The people who are really upset about Luce are these kind of terminally online Catholic commenters with FDS, Francis derangement syndrome. A lot of them have. They just they have a real hatred of the vicar. They have a real hatred of the Pope, and so they're going to use every opportunity they can to attack the church. And so that's an avenue. It's like anime. People spend a lot of time saying anime's bad or Japan's bad or people who like anime is bad. It's a constant attack on the youth and the things they like. Whereas the Vatican was like, we're just going to make a mascot and we have this synod that's going to happen in Japan. We're going to do it kind of in that style and embrace what the youth like with this and just make something that's Catholic for it. And people liked it. Turned out it wasn't a bad idea, I guess. But mainly, I think it was a good idea because it unleashed a big artistic force online to spread it and to make people have these conversations and to talk about it. So yeah, on the Catholic side, I see most of the people who are upset about Luce are the terminally online Catholic bro people, and the terminally online ortho people obviously are not going to like, they don't like statuary, so they're not going to like that. So there you go. But in my real life experience, like real life Orthodox Christians are, they're faithful Christians. They care about their traditions. They're not bent out of shape about a kid drawing Jesus or something. Right? They don't care about, like, it's not something that they are on the warpath about. They're not that legalistic. So anyway, I think that's a great topic to talk about is Luce and look at all the art that's there and have the conversation about what it should be. Luce is not an icon though, so we're not saying that you should draw icons in the anime style. Luce is just a mascot. It's just a cute mascot to represent the year 2025 with the things that the church is doing and some of the events that are happening with that. And it's not an icon. You're not making something with an intent for people to like have devotion with or like to inspire them towards prayer, except in a general sense. A lot of the things people were really grasping for straws with the semiology that was involved, but the church actually explained it pretty clearly. She's in a raincoat because she's a pilgrim. That's why her boots are muddy. This is called a pilgrim staff. It has a hook so you can hang things on it. There's lots of older paintings of this here. Of course, this is Lord Miles. If you don't know who he is, he's an English guy who just went and made friends with the Taliban. Just like, I'm going to go there and just meet them as human beings. And he did it. He totally did it. Amazing. He was their prisoner, sort of, but then they just let him go because, this rosary, I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think Fulton Sheen, Bishop Fulton Sheen is the one who either invented it or really popularized it. It has a bunch of different colors. This is not a rainbow rosary. Okay. These colors, blue, white, red, green, represent different parts of the world that you're going to be praying for. Okay, so it's to pray for people across the world. It's a rosary. Of course, the rosary ends at the cross. And then the scallops are like a symbol of hope. So they explained like what the symbols mean, and so they are still talking in a somewhat symbolic language, but they're also applying that to an aesthetic that's designed to get people to think and to get people to appreciate for instance, the kawaii, the cuteness. Why would you want people to think something is cute when they should be very dour and serious? Well, there's a joyfulness. There's the joyfulness of being a child. You must be like a child. I think it goes right along with that. She's supposed to be hopeful and energetic and cute. And those are good things, right? What's the valuation there? That's what I like to think about. But I think it's been a big success in terms of the response. Just inspired so many people to make so much art. Okay, let me take a look at the chat before I get to any other topics. I have a few other things that I do want to talk about on this creativity stream. But the big one is like what goes into creativity. That's a big one. And I really want to emphasize that it's important that you have good work habits, because you're not going to develop the skills without good work habits. It's mostly about practice, whether it's music or it's art or it's writing. You just need to put in the hours to get it done. Thank you for the super chat, Sound Engineer. I love this kind of topic. I'm glad you do, and I know that you would. I watched a short of yours about the kind of art we make in college, the kind of music we make in college. Like, that's exactly the kind of challenging music. We did a lot of postmodern weird stuff. I programmed a computer to make music 20 years ago, which was kind of new and cutting edge, and now people just type it into an AI and a pop song pops up. But we did really weird things with it. And I did political things with my art, I had I used George W. Bush's inauguration address as like a data feed for a set of note generators in Maximus P. This was a long time. I had to like write some custom code to get that to work, and that was pretty fun and challenging. What else we got here? I'm watching The Empire, and the Zool starts playing. It fits. Pretty cool new way to watch Star Wars. Oh, cool. Being creative right now. I'm painting minis for Talisman. Yeah. So if you're painting a miniature, that's a creative endeavor. You you imagine, I want these colors to look this way, or I want it to have this aesthetic, or I want it to be distressed. So if you're painting miniatures, that's a creative exercise. And you maybe have a vision for like your whole army. Like if you're building a Warhammer army, like what's my army going to look like, and what are the colors going to be for it, and what's my legion? You think about these things in a creative sense. You imagine it. You're inspired. You have a will. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And then you decide to do it, and you have an act. You actually paint it, and you use your skill to paint it, and then you evaluate it at the end. Does it look cool? Did it fulfill my vision? And we talked a little bit about Royal Road and Wattpad. I might try Royal Road out. Why not? Might generate some interest there. You never know. You can always have like a optionality there. I recently had a burst of inspiration and creativity for ideas about books, filmmaking, board games, video games, businesses when we had our first child. Was this something you experienced? Yes. And in my opinion, those sorts of big explosive periods happen to a great degree whenever there's change in your life. So this is a meta thing, not even a macro thing, really a meta thing about creativity. Being creative about creativity. How do you make yourself more creative over time? You need change. You need things to be disturbing your equilibrium sometimes to make you inspired to do things and to make you think about new things. At the same time, you need reliable work habits. You need your life to be pretty reliable and routine in order to have the time necessary to put the effort, to put the work in to make something creative happen. So my rule of thumb, and I don't know how much I've talked about it on this channel. It's not a rule of thumb, but it's something that I've pursued for a long time because I realized the power of this is you got to change something big once a year. Change something about your life once every year. It might be in Keys to Prolific Creativity. I don't know if I wrote it in there or not, but I'm telling it to you now for free. So change something once a year. Having a baby is a huge change for your life. Your schedule becomes completely rearranged around this helpless human being that you love all of a sudden your priorities change. Everything changes when you have kids. And for me, in a totally positive way. It's not that there's zero negatives, right? No one likes to change diapers. But we love our children enough to do that. And we love being able to serve them. So some people actually do like changing diapers because they just love taking care of babies. They love caring for the child. But it rearranges your life. It's a big change. And so because of all that rearranging, you start valuing everything different, right? So the valuation changes. You start seeing new things you haven't seen before in new contexts where you haven't had that context for that thing before, right? You understand love differently. And so that will inspire you, give you ideas for new things that you haven't seen yet or you haven't done yet that you maybe would like to bring into the world. The hard part after that is like, how do you find the time to do the other thing, to do the effort? And so that's always the challenge after having a kid. So for our last child, I purposefully scheduled no work for the first, 4 weeks, the first month after the child. I'm like, I'm on paternity leave from my creative work. It didn't mean I had nothing to do creatively, but I published a book and then I just disappeared from the world and just focused entirely on the baby and my wife, and that was really, really good for me. Yes, I had lots of ideas. What did I do with those ideas? Well, I just wrote them down in like a document. If I had a really big idea that was coming together, and I had a lot of time to be bored, to be honest, with kids, boredom often creates inspiration. So those moments where you're sitting there, I'm holding the baby, waiting her to go to sleep. It's got to be quiet. What do? I can scroll Twitter on my phone, or I can write down ideas, or I can read, right? It's really hard to do several different things at once. But I was really thankful for those moments, because it allowed me to take a step back and do what I think it's number 8 in the Keys book, which is to consume art. It forced me to do what I'm really bad at, which is to consume art. I hate to use the word consume sometimes because it's not like I'm eating the art, but to take it in, to enjoy it, to experience art, to take it in and digest it and begin that process of inspiration again. So change can do that a lot. So some of the ways that I would change things every year, I would change where I lived. So I would live in a different city. When I was young, I was able to do this, but obviously I can't do that now as much. But anyway, yeah, I'd change a big thing every year to keep it interesting. So I would move to a different apartment, right? Or I would start a new job, or I would take up a new habit, like go to the gym or something. I would move to Las Vegas, and then I would move to the other side of Las Vegas, and I would switch jobs in Las Vegas, and I would change my workout routine in Las Vegas. I would move out of Las Vegas, and I'd move to LA, and then I'd move to Modesto, and then have a kid, and change jobs again, right? And then, change cities again, change jobs again, right? So you're changing something big every year. You're going to find that drives you. First of all, it makes life seem longer, which is good in some ways, but it will drive you to think of new things and make new connections and do new things and have new inspiration. I have an idea for a medieval fantasy world inspired by the Elder Scrolls, and when I'm rich, you'll get an amazing initiative RPG. What's up? Innovative RPG. Cool. I'm calling it No Stone Unturned. No Stone Unturned is that would be like the subtitle. I would think of something bigger that really hits RPG hard, which would be like Elder Scrolls does it. Elder Scrolls sounds like an RPG, but there's a lot of other ones you could do. Let's see what else we got here. Tomorrow. That's a popular one. We got an ad. All right. Oh, I think Restream's working again. Okay, that's good. I won't miss X stuff. All right. Yeah, I would think of a title. I mean, it's not that important now, but you think of a title that like Dragon Age. Oh, that's obviously a fantasy RPG because it's called Dragon Age. Right? Elder Scrolls. Gothic. Baldur's Gate, Diablo, Think of something short like that is what I would do. You could call it Arcana. That's actually a Super Nintendo game. But it gets you thinking. Story crafting books sell probably because people like to imagine the kinds of stories they'd write. Well, I think they sell because a lot of writers are under the illusion that they're going to pick up special techniques in them. And yeah, they can inspire you to write new stories. Totally. I'm not disagreeing with you at all, actually. But I think a lot of authors are looking for, they like to read Save the Cat because they think it'll make them write the correct kind of screenplay. And they're wanting someone to tell them what to do because they actually are not very creative. they are thinking in terms entirely of like the outcome of the valuation. Like, I want to sell a screenplay, so I need to write what like Blake Snyder says to write. It's like, okay, you're never going to write a really good one that way because you're not being creative. You don't have any inspiration. There's no inspiration behind that. So they're trying to skip the whole like inspiration part, and then they don't realize that there's a huge effort and will, right? They have to will for something to exist. They think that somehow they'll find inspiration and it'll just magically make a thing appear, or they are like, if I just have the right formula and just do the formula, that'll make it happen. Well, you have to do. You do have to make the effort. But if I give you a formula and then you make the effort, what comes out at the end, you might as well have an AI write it. There's no inspiration there. Do you know what I mean? Luce versus previous Jubilee pieces. Was wondering if you would talk about this. I'll get banned for what? I don't know what I'll get banned for. What method would you prefer I sign up for? YouTube, join, Patreon? I prefer Patreon. Patreon's the best because it makes it easiest to deliver the benefits, which is primarily books, right? Whereas it's really hard if you're a YouTube member, I have to like go through several extra steps to give you a free book. It's just it's a little bit harder to do. So if you're thinking about joining the Patreon, join the Patreon, because that way you can get the book off of Patreon. You can just download it from Patreon. I don't have to do BookFunnel or anything. You could do Ko-Fi, but I'm trying to get everybody off of Ko-Fi. I got rid of the monthly memberships because it was too much. I was having to post in like 30 different places for everything, and it just got to be overwhelming for me. It's better to just do Patreon. I lost money doing that. Because people aren't going to want to switch. Like, I'm not doing Patreon. I'll only do Ko-Fi. I'll only do coffee. Okay. I guess I lost a customer. But it saved me a lot of time from having to deal with 3 or 4 different platforms and all their idiosyncrasies. There we go. So yes, Patreon. That way I can give you the book. You get all of the member-only posts. It manages everything. And it should auto-invite you to the Discord as well. And if not, I usually send out Discord invites periodically for people just to like catch everybody. It's not a super active Discord, but I'm on it pretty often talking about stuff. I've been burned out ever since I dropped this album I worked on. How do I take a rest? How do I keep working without burning out? Okay, awesome question. So I would just think it's okay in the large scale, like your macro process, to take a break and not create anything. You do not have to be, the attempt to be 100% productive all the time will cause burnout. And I've been there, and I have felt the burnout, and I feel burnout in different areas of what I'm doing all the time. So I used to take like a month off every year from doing any kind of YouTube stuff, and I need to do that again here at some point. But because I have Patreon and stuff, it gets way harder to do that, because it's like, okay, if I take a month off, if I take the gas off this, I'm gonna lose all the customers, I'm gonna lose all the viewers. It's social media really pressures you to just be on 100% of the time, but that's not good for creativity. You got to take a break and consume other stuff. So especially if you don't have like a big social media following that is like really forcing you to interact with them all the time, I would just say, okay, I'm going to rest. I'm going to take a month off, and I'm just going to focus on listening to this kind of music while I lift weights at the gym or something, right? Instead of going into the studio, I'm going to go to the gym. Replace that with something else that you feel like is also productive, but just towards a different end is really helpful, right? Instead of going in the studio, instead of sitting in my computer trying to record things, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do cardio or lift weights. I'm going to really focus on my body. And while you're doing that, what are you doing? You're listening to music. You're listening to new music. You're exploring new things. You're listening to the music at the gym, which may make you think of things, or you're picking out some music for you yourself to listen to while you're doing that stuff. Super valuable. So decide how much time you're going to take off and then force yourself to do it. 4 weeks is usually good. 4 to 6 weeks. After that, you're going to start crawling up the walls if you're a really creative person, because you're going to want to be doing. I want to be doing. I'm that way too. If I take more than a few days off, I start to get itchy. But I know it's important for me to take a day off every once in a while and just not vegetate, but work on other things and read books and just think and get back to that inspired point. Because if the inspiration's not there, if you don't have an idea for what to do next, it's really hard to push it out. Right. And people get writer's block. There's lots of ways to avoid writer's block. And the main way is to plot your book. It's a little harder with music, where you just don't know what to do next. It's like, I don't have any musical ideas right now. Okay, that can't be helped. Go listen to some music and relax. Or you can get your instrument out and just practice technical exercises or something. Practice something that you haven't practiced. I made a decision the other week. This is not a thing I would record or perform, so it's not directed towards a product. And my wife pointed this out. She's like, "You're not going to perform this." I'm like, "No," but I decided I'm going to learn some Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff. I'm going to really figure out what he did. So I did that. Get some licks. Put those into the big vat of licks that you can use. See how he did chords. How did he construct songs? How did he keep track of time? What was really going on in some of these songs? What tone did he use? Right? All those little things. It's like learning a Stevie Ray Vaughan song will just add a bunch of things in that I hadn't really thought about before. I know how to play blues. I've been playing blues my whole life, but I've just not spent a lot of time learning his stuff. I've more been on the jazz side. So going and getting more guitar-based blues and not thinking about it in terms of theory, like here's these chords and here's the stuff I play on top of the chords. It's like, what did he actually do on the guitar is pretty valuable. Turns out, like most of Stevie Ray Vaughan's stuff, even though he played with such energy and it's fast and energetic, it's not that hard, right? He chose things that sound hard but are feel really good under the fingers. They're really easy to play. They feel good on the hands. So that was a good step away from all the improv stuff that I've been doing, which I've spent a year, and it was a great year to work on that. I change something every year. I'm going to do improvised ambient music, and I'm just going to see if I can get to 100. I'm not at 100 yet. I'm in the 80s for the number of pieces I've done. We'll get there. But now I know that I can just turn on my software, turn on my Ableton Push whenever I want to, and I can make a new thing. But I'm not inspired to go do that because I hadn't come up with lots of new ideas to go take that into that arena. So that's why I haven't been doing a lot of it. It's good. Take a step back, practice some other things, do some new music, learn some things that I haven't learned in a long time. Like one thing I think I'm gonna do some of the cheesiest guitar learning that I just never really did. I think I'm gonna learn Stairway to Heaven, like every note of Stairway to Heaven. It's stupid. Am I gonna perform Stairway to Heaven? Probably not. But I will have a deep knowledge of everything Jimmy Page did and everything Robert Plant did and all the players did on that song. I'm just going to learn it inside out maybe. And so then I'll think about, what does that do? That helps me to figure out the valuation of the song. Why do people love this song so much, and why is it such a good song? What about the lyrics? You just look at it from every angle while you learn it, and then that can create inspiration. Oh, I could do it this way. I could do it a different way than I did before. I don't think the art is in the word choice, but being able to pick out the results that convey your intended meaning. Not a great skill, mind you, but along the lines of interior design. I think you're thinking of AI art, right? I don't believe putting words in an AI image generator is a form of art. Yeah, I don't think so either. I've pointed this out as like there's not really an inspiration. You're not imagining it. It's barely there. You're kind of imagining it and you're putting it into words. There's no effort. There's no will, really, to do it, other than, I guess you have a small amount of will because you open up an image generator and type words into it. You're not willing a new thing into existence. And in fact, it's not very creative because it's just kind of mixing up things that it's done and kind of chewed up in its algorithm in the past. No effort. And is there any valuation? Look at the word value. The net value of all AI art is 0. In fact, the net value is negative. The gross value is 0. Net value is negative. So it costs a lot of money to run these things, and it has produced 0 value in the world. No one's buying AI art. No one will buy AI art in the future. Why? Because why would I buy your AI art? I will get the AI to make me new art for cheap or free. I would never pay for AI art, ever. I would never pay for someone else's AI art. It's the stupidest idea on planet Earth. So the value of it is 0. Is it art if literally nobody values it at all? I don't know. It certainly challenges some ideas. Have you experimented with AI music generators? Nope. I'm not really interested in them. I might just to see what they do. But that's not what I'm trying to do as a creator. You've mentioned this a few times before, David. It inspired me to change jobs. That was 7-ish years ago. Very useful advice. I'm glad it was useful. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes you just need to switch it up. Just have a different job. It can sometimes turn everything around. And even if it's a bad job, then then it inspires you to get the next job, which may be even better. You never know. Someone's making a joke about the name of a quest line in Skyrim. I don't know. I must have missed that. Oh. Miles was there during the Afghan withdrawal and documented the event. That's how I first heard of him. He went back then, I guess. Yeah. I said you'd get banned when you said you'd show the fan art of the Vatican anime character. I guess you and I roll in different anime circles. Yeah, I just typed it in, and Twitter doesn't show me a lot of porn because I block it. So that's good. But I did at least not show the screen while I typed it in, just in case, because I know that someone might be trying to do Rule 34 art of this little Vatican mascot. Brian Niemeyer says writer's block doesn't real. It's not real. Writer's block is usually because you don't know what happens in the story. So if you don't know what happens in the story, that means you need to go back and write a plot outline. You need to figure out what happens in the story. So if you go back and outline and understand what needs to happen in the story, that will solve the writer's block. You know what the next event is. Most of the time when people get writer's block, it's because they don't know what happens next. It's not because they somehow lose inspiration. It's really just, it's a skill thing. They just haven't plotted the book out. They're pantsers, and they're used to coming up with ideas, the ideas coming in, inspiration coming in as they're writing. And when it doesn't, they're like, I'm lost. It's like, okay, just decide what happens in the story, and that's the end of writer's block. Understand story techniques, and that'll probably just give you what you want. I'm using AI music, images, etc. as assets in a game I'm making, so I disagree. Well, the art of the game is the gameplay. But the AI art actually has no value. You're not paying for it. The only value you could say that it has is that it's you avoiding having to do that labor yourself or to pay someone else to do that labor. But at the same time, right? If the AI art was worth something, you would pay for it. It has no market value. Even as part of a product, right? Because I've used AI elements for like images or covers. This is like a bunch of AI stuff assembled together, right? Purposefully, because this book is about AI. The net value of AI art as a thing is pretty much 0. So whatever value you gain is like a savings from something else that you would spend. And it's not wrong, right? It's not wrong to want to save labor. Like if I do the visual novel, I'll probably use a lot of AI for the mock-up. And then what I would probably do is once I have the thing functioning and I know what kind of art I need or want, I hire an artist to do that art better than the AI art, or just do it in a new, original, artistic, creative style that they, expresses them or works within whatever I'm doing. Because AI art doesn't have like a consistent creative voice either. It's all over the place. And unless you're directing it to like paint in a style of like a historic artist, it doesn't usually do that kind of unified style thing very well. That's fine. I think it would be really useful for mock-ups. I think studios could use it for like storyboarding or something like that. But even when I see, here's this AI thing I did of like, I saw one of Princess Mononoke, and it looked awful, but people were impressed that someone did it with AI. It looked like crap, and the person worked super hard to do it. It's like, why did you do this? No one's paying for it. No one would buy this. It can't be sold. It's not a real movie, right? In order to turn it into a real movie, you'd have to do hundreds of $millions of real production work to do it. But it could be useful as like a concept. Here's the concept sketch stage. And a lot of artists actually use AI as a sketch stage. They'll have the AI create like a piece of concept art, and then they paint over it and like use it as a sketch to iterate on to make a final product. And so you have to ask them, like, what's the value of that? It saves them labor. It gives them inspiration. But it itself, as its own thing, the value is zero. No one's paying for it. Right? Like, you may pay for like access to the AI, but you're not actually paying for the art. You know what I mean? It's also a money saver when talking to third-party contractors. Instead of building the concept from scratch, you got more of a direction to show. Yeah, it's just like a concept sketch. Instead of taking an hour to draw something for them, you're like, here's an AI rendering of it. Does this inspire you? Okay, I'll go do the real thing now. I'm playing with AI music for fun and or shit posts. That's what I use AI for a lot. I have no musical talent, so there's novelty in having music happen. Trying to learn how to write lyrics, but that's probably the most value I get. It's like the I glued my balls to my butthole song. It's pretty funny. AI music generators can now take your own music or tune you hum and convert it into a different style or instrumentation with the same melody. Definitely suffer from not plotting thoroughly for my story. I haven't made progress in ages, but working on outlining now feels good. There you go. Yeah, Brian makes a point. The Luce fan art has been overwhelmingly wholesome. This has not been a black pill moment about art. Like, oh no, here come the degenerates. Like, yeah, you're going to have people that do that because we live in a place that has free speech, right? But it's overwhelmingly like wholesome stuff. Or it's really, okay, I'm looking at a pretty funny one. Luce saving the baby from Planned Parenthood. This takeoff of The Shining. I think this is AI rendered, but you get the idea. There's Brian. Luce turned me into a newt. It's not a witch staff, right? Yeah, most of it I've seen is pretty darn wholesome. Or it's supposed to be cute and funny, right? Like the Warhammer 40K thing. Here's a little animation. I hate fun. So yeah, I mean, it there's a lot of jokes, right? There's a lot of funniness that goes in with it, but it's mostly pretty wholesome. I'd say it's about 98% wholesome so far. Here's a good one. Right. This is really wholesome. This is the concept. She's a pilgrim. There's a dog. The dogs are cute. Dogs are cute. Gotta love dogs. Crusader, we say. Oh, this is a takeoff of Evangelion, right? You know, Lion King. Oh, here's Diva did a Luce one with the ducks. Right, there's lots of stuff. It's overwhelmingly wholesome. Oh, here it is. The World Mission Rosary. Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen loved the missions. He wanted us to pray for our mission family. So in 1951, he created the World Mission Rosary. Each set of beads on the world mission rosary is a different color. Yellow for Asia. Red for the Americas, the red band. Where missionaries journeyed on fire with faith in Jesus. Where the sun rises each day. White is for Europe. This is perfect. Home to the Pope, clothed in white. Blue is for the islands of the Pacific, surrounded by the ocean waters. Green is for Africa, with its many trees and plants. Yep. A little funny choices. But, you know. I believe they're well-intentioned and not trying to be in any way bad. Let's see if there's another one. Luce and friends. Here you go. Praying alongside Mary. Uh-oh. There's her in a bikini. We don't need to see that. Not exactly pornographic. It's an AI. I might call it lewd though, or erotic. This is a funny one, right? Some people write some jokes. Here's Brazilian Miku, who's very sad. No one loves Brazilian Miku anymore. They love Luce, and they're so happy, right? A lot of AI stuff, but yeah, for the most part, I think it's been pretty wholesome. 98% wholesome. I only saw one there that wasn't like perfectly wholesome, really. You know, or you know, sometimes there's jokes. Maybe they're not wholesome. Recently, I've been watching the original X-Files, and I've been surprised at how functional and engaging the writing is. Yeah, I made a joke that like a random Darkwing Duck episode is better than 99% of what Hollywood makes now. Writing had to be functional in the past. You were working on smaller budgets. The story had to do a lot of heavy lifting in the past, and especially with X-Files. Think of X-Files. X-Files is really all about plot. The story and the characters drive everything. It's not a special effects show, so you can't rely on costumes and special effects or any kind of stimulation like that. You just have to do a good story. So in general, X-Files would do good stories every week. You know, even something like Star Trek, which is a relatively high budget, lived or died based on the quality of writing in the show. You couldn't have a big special effects extravaganza every week. You had to really be original, and you had to think of new things, and you had to execute those stories well, or people weren't going to tune in and watch. And if people weren't watching, then you weren't making any money. You couldn't rely on like being part of a joint product, right? Like there's this streaming service, and the show in it is part of the joint product of all the shows being shown on it. You couldn't rely on that. You had to actually generate ratings for that show, or you were getting canceled. So it had to be good. Glenn David Robinson, Obscurest Vinyl, the creator of A Glue My Balls to My Butthole Again, writes all of his own lyrics without AI. Only the music itself is AI generated. Yeah, he also said the AI generator he was using, I think he said that like it wouldn't want to have some of those words. So he had to be creative about how to get them through, like so that they phonetically sound like those words, but he actually wrote them as different words. Which is interesting to think about. But yeah, those are pretty funny. I think that's a great use of AI, because the point is just to make a joke, have some fun, laugh, be humorous about it. But I don't think I would pay for that, right? I don't think I'd pay for that. I would pay my attention to it, but I don't think I would pay money for it. But I don't know. Maybe someone will. Skillup reviewed the new Dragon Age Veilguard. He said every scene felt like HR was present in each interaction. That's probably not far from the truth. So I've heard this too. I think somebody leaked me that review, I think. Maybe it was a different one. But they said more or less the same thing, that the writing was really atrocious. It felt like it was written and designed by committee. Obviously super woke. And they had lots of really silly dialogue options, including oof, and where you would select one dialogue option, you just wouldn't get that. The character wouldn't say that because they don't give you. In the original Dragon Age, you had 4 dialogue options or a couple dialogue options. There's no wheel. There's no wheel that told you which was a romantic option. You had to actually think about what that character would respond to and pick one, which was way better. It's way better than a dialogue wheel. I hate the dialogue wheel. I understand why they did it. for Mass Effect, but I hate the dialogue wheel. I think it's atrocious, and it's one of my least favorite pieces of interface. It's not even necessary for consoles. It's not like consoles need a dialogue wheel because of a controller. You can select through different dialogue options with the buttons on a controller. It's stupid, but anyway, made that point. Like, you select, oh, I want to say this thing that's angry, and then you select it and it's not angry. And it's like it's just none of your choices matter. Your character has no personality. You can't even select good dialogue options for him. It's bad. It's bad. Veilguard's going to be BioWare's last game. I kind of hope so. Brian says it's like unpublished manuscripts. The market value is 0 until someone pays for it. That's a great point. This is often the thing about people that are afraid of other people stealing their copyrighted work, right? It's like, I can't let people see my story. They'll steal it. It's like, your unpublished manuscript is not as valuable as you think it is. Like, your ideas are not as special as you think they are. The execution is really what counts. The people who steal your stuff, they steal completed works and publish them. And how are they getting your completed work? They're getting it because you published it. So all of the plagiarism controversies I have seen in my lifetime are the result of people copying things that have already been published and are popular in some way. It has never been the case where somebody has like stolen an unpublished manuscript and published it as their own, except in the case of fiction. There was this movie, I think Cuba Gooding Jr. was in it. It was called A Murder of Crows, about a guy who basically steals some writer's manuscript and publishes it to get the money. And I'm like, that's a very fun and compelling idea, unless you've worked in the publishing industry and you're like, that would never happen. I was like, you wouldn't discover a special manuscript that would just make you rich and famous. It just wouldn't happen, partly because you wouldn't get it published, but it also probably wouldn't happen because you wouldn't, it probably wouldn't make you any money. It's really hard to make money in the publishing business. It's hard. BioWare is a big name that might be worth the loss for a while. Keep in mind they're owned by EA, so EA could always like tear the studio down and distribute those resources elsewhere or rebuild it however they want. And the other thing about a studio or a name like BioWare is that it's the people that make it good. And all of the people that made Dragon Age Origins good are long gone, is my understanding. I don't think there's anyone left. There's no one left from KOTOR, right? There's nothing left. So all the people are gone. And because all the people are gone, you can't really expect the product to be good, right? It says Toby Emmerich got his first big break that started his Hollywood career by selling an unpublished screenplay that he plagiarized. So I didn't know about that. But how did he get it? He must have stolen it from someone. All right, hold on. I'm going to take just a quick break here to figure out what's going on. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So I did think of some kind of plagiarism-like controversies. I was walking away. One was basically an agent that took somebody's book and then handed it to a friend and said, you should write this plot, right? So they were they were engaged in like professional plagiarism or theft. Is that they took the idea from someone that they didn't like, that they were representing, or maybe even they didn't even represent them. They just took the manuscript and handed it to another person and said, you should write this and I'll get it published. So that is a kind of professional theft that happens. But almost all of the bigger stuff I've seen, like the, what was his name? See, he's so unimportant, I don't even remember his name. Turns out his ghostwriters, which I'm sure he was hiring ghostwriters because he was publishing like 12 books a year. His ghostwriters were just plagiarizing things to fill up the manuscript and make it read well. And that's just what they did. They were plagiarizing stuff like James Joyce. They were plagiarizing stuff like Stephen King and Stephen Hunter, right? They were plagiarizing way bigger names. And they were plagiarizing word for word, not just like rewrite this plot. Most people way overrate the value of like their special book they wrote. That is to say, a screenplay that he plagiarized from an unpublished screenplay. And then even the qualifications for plagiarism, I think, are difficult for a lot of people to understand. And in some cases, it's just a matter of rolling the dice with the jury. James Cameron, I think, ended up having to pay a bunch of royalties to... who was it? It was for the Terminator, because it had a slightly similar plot to what he had written in like the 1960s. I wouldn't have qualified it as plagiarism because it had like people time traveling and doing battle in the present. I don't know if I would have qualified it as plagiarism, but and James Cameron didn't think so, but the studio paid him anyway. I'm trying to think who it was. The name will come to me in a minute. He used to write Star Trek episodes and stuff too. So that was kind of a big one, but they like paid him out. He thought his idea was super special, even though it had been written dozens of times before him, probably. SFWA, Science Fiction Writers of America, had some drama last week over plagiarism. It's funny how the haters were right all along about the dude, but the org didn't want to believe it till they had 80 pages of receipts. Let's get some more music going here. Oh, we got an ad. Ads have just been skipping to the end on YouTube for me lately, which I guess I like. Harlan Ellison, that's right. He wrote City on the Edge of Tomorrow, which was a famous Star Trek episode. Actually, not my favorite. I actually don't like that Star Trek episode. But yeah, Harlan Ellison, that's right. Bill Selby wrote a script titled Double Time, which was never sold, but rewritten by Toby Emmerich into Frequency, which kickstarted his Hollywood career. See, I didn't know this story. It's an interesting story. Yeah, I realize I'm still using like the new pub talk thing. I need to make a new one. I'll make a new one. I meant to make a new one this week, but I just didn't get to it. I had so much going on. You always got a lot of stuff going on. Anyway, I'm starting to run out of time for the day. So let me see if there's any more stuff I wanted to talk about. Okay. Related to Luce. I've got two more things to talk about, then we'll go. Why young men like anime? So this is kind of related to this. This Edward Fesser, who's like a Catholic philosopher, was like doing a huge amount of emotional projection. In fact, I might look him up real quick to show you this amount of he called everyone who disagreed with him bedwetters because they were just trolling him, which really indicated that he was very upset and angry about people calling him old and stupid for not liking Luce. I mean, he's wrong on it because he doesn't understand aesthetics, but that's neither here or there. His response was that it's a bunch of young men who like anime. I'm like, so that doesn't have anything to do with maybe the church needs young men, but why do young men like anime? And there's a lot of reasons that I thought about with this. It's not just the aesthetics. The aesthetics are part of the anime package, and the aesthetics do point to certain things, but it's because anime gives young men what modern media doesn't, which is it gives you femininity. It gives you stories that are worth watching. It gives you heroes and villains. And it gives you things which are visually appealing to look at. Versus watching a Western show where you're just going to be told through the story, or sometimes directly as characters just talk to each other, what a horrible person you are for being a male. So they don't want to watch that. The women are all masculine freaks, or they are angry cat ladies pontificating about feminist political talking points. Whereas, I see why young men like something like K-On!, even though I find it very boring. It's because there's a little slice of life anime full of feminine characters acting like girls, and that's just not anywhere, right? You just don't see that ideal. It's an ideal that's just missing from their lives, and certainly from other media. So why do they attach themselves to it? Because it's something that's not given to them by society. Society doesn't give them any femininity. There's no femininity in modern Western society. But it's still there in anime, so that's where they go for it. Same thing with masculinity as well. Male characters who are good. And then there's a lot of fantasy type stories where you have like an omega male who becomes good, becomes worthy, is able to get the girl, is able to become a hero. That may not be a super realistic fantasy, but it's one that's enjoyable. You don't see that anywhere in modern Western media, right? So yeah, that's why they like anime. They like anime for a lot of reasons, and it's a good aesthetic. Whereas modern, if I go turn on why should cartoons be only for children? You ever watch Akira? You ever watch Akira? Vampire Hunter D? In Japan, they're not just for kids, right? The animation is to look beautiful, and it looks a lot more beautiful than modern Western animation. There is good animation in something like Rick and Morty. It's well animated. But is it aesthetically pleasing? The answer is no, it's not. Is Adventure Time, or these aren't aesthetically pleasing things to look at, whereas it's really pleasing to look at a lot of anime. The characters look cute, they look interesting, they look pretty, the colors are bright, the environments are nice to look at. That's why it's not a mystery as to why they're into anime. They're not into anime because they're degenerates. A lot of them are probably in better shape than the people calling them out as far as like their physicality. They don't drink. They have less extramarital sex than previous generations. Maybe that's a bad thing for some people, but like, it's not because they're degenerates that they like anime. They like anime because it gives them something that Western media doesn't. And then there's a tacit question with that, which is like, what exactly are they supposed to be into? Is there a pop culture thing not from Japan that they are supposed to be into that's better? Are they supposed to be into Marvel movies? You just make fun of millennials for like losing their shit over Star Wars and Marvel movies. Are they supposed to be into that? No. Why would they be into that? It's garbage. It's browbeating garbage. They don't want to watch that. What are they supposed to be into? They're supposed to be into manly stuff, like lifting weights at the gym. Well, they do that too. They do that all by themselves because no one gives a shit about young men in our society. They don't care about them at all. They don't care where they are. They don't care if they're at church or not. They're the lowest of the low. They're the worst people on planet Earth. Right? So what else? What are they supposed to be into? They're supposed to be hunting. That's actually a really hard hobby to get into. But you got to buy guns. Not easy to buy guns necessarily nowadays. Hard to find a place to hunt. How are you getting in with other men to do that? Every other man you meet in the city is a feminized tool. So what exactly are you supposed to be into? Besides video games and anime. What else is there to do? There's no lodge. There's no Shriners to hang out with. Dating pool's a cesspit. What are they supposed to do? Nobody ever cares to ask those questions or think about an answer for them. What are young men supposed to be doing? If you are a tool like Matt Walsh, you're going to be like, well, you should be making a family and being 1,000% productive in some business and never having any fun ever. That's great, but they don't have that opportunity. They don't have that opportunity to have a family because women won't date them because they're only a 9 out of 10. They're only a 9 out of 10 with a blurry 4-pack. They're getting no dates because of it. Sorry. Online dating doesn't work. It has messed everything up, and they are suffering for it Can you blame them for not wanting to participate when the outcomes are always bad and it's always like a giant ego check and it just tears you down week after week? No, they're not going to do that. So, yeah, it's not an option for them to just have a family. How are they supposed to attract a woman? Well, not by watching anime. Great. They don't tell women that they're into anime. That's revealed way later. They're smart. If you're smart, you don't tell them. It's anti-erotic. It's anti... it's anti-attraction. Reveal that stuff later on. You don't mean a day. What are you into? Games and anime. Yeah, that's not going to go well. You just say something else like, I like heavy metal or something. Are they supposed to be into heavy metal where they can do drugs and go to concerts? I don't know. I don't think that's better. So yeah, no one ever asked that question. What are young men, what are 25, what are 22-year-old men supposed to be into? Making money. That only fills up so much of the day if you can find a job there where you can make money. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of silly. Not showing it shade at any individuals, just the fact that of the gen that surrendered the culture flipping over, this is all I need to know. Yeah. BioWare Zombie Studio, like so many others, comes down to thinking the value of a brand is in the name, not the people, which only lasts so long after the reverence of legacy has been jettisoned. Yeah, sooner or later, people just... Like, BioWare hasn't produced a good game in well over 10 years. When was the last good BioWare game? Now, I can think of acceptable BioWare games. I don't think the only good Dragon Age game is the first one. The only really good one. Dragon Age 2 is mediocre. Dragon Age Inquisition was bad. Okay, Mass Effect 3 was okay. It was mediocre. Anthem was bad. Mass Effect Andromeda was bad. So the last okay thing they did was Mass Effect 3. That was over 10 years ago. It's been more than a decade since they've had any good output. Just call it like it is. Why is anyone buying their shit? Only people my age who remember how good the first Dragon Age game are going to buy it. Or people who like Dragon Age Inquisition and simply don't know what better games are, I guess. You know? Your Luce defense would make a good standalone edit. Yeah. Maybe I've been trying to have Opus AI make AI edits. It just doesn't work very good. They're supposed to insert sports game here and nothing else. Yeah, what they're supposed to like football. Why? Why would you want to watch football? Why do you want to watch a bunch of millionaires give each other brain damage who hate you and want you dead? Why would you watch that? That's a humiliation ritual. Watching that at this point. I don't know why anyone watches. I know why people watch sports. It's because they like watching people do big things and they like the competition. It's okay. But come on. Is that somehow, how is that more masculine to sit your ass on the couch and watch someone else play a game? Get out and play the game. That's more fun. It's more fun to play a video game. You're doing something when you play a video game versus watching local sports club full of millionaires that hate you give each other brain damage. It's mainly a big problem in the United States. Well, that's where I'm at, so that's where I know where it is. Have you seen the chart of how couples used to meet from 1950 to present? It went from 20 family, 20 friend, 20 school to the top to currently 60% online. Yeah, that's rough. But I'm going to defend it a little bit. I'm going to defend maybe specialized online dating because our communities are not communities anymore. They are so fractured in terms of values and common morals and religions. You might have to find someone online. If you are, let's say you are a Catholic. You look around in your neighborhood. How many other Catholics are there? Because if you want to marry someone, you want to marry someone that's the same religion as you. I'm choosing Catholic, but it could be something else. It could be Mormon, right? How many Mormons are there in your community? Not very many. Okay, you got it. Where are you going to meet them? Maybe not at school, maybe at church. Okay. You go to your church. There's 2 women there. They both have boyfriends that aren't Catholic. How do you date them? You can't date them. So you have to go online to find someone that has your values, because there's no one in your community that has your values. Even the people at your church may not fully have your values. They're in the world. They are being tempted to sin in the world. Maybe they're just not dating people in the church. It's a problem, right? If you want to have that long-term relationship where you have the same values. So like, yes, stupid stuff that you might think it's stupid, like CatholicDate.com or something. I don't know if that's real, but I'm pretending it's real. Or Christian Mingle, or, the online Muslim dating one. You might have to use if you're a Muslim, you might have to use an online service to find someone that's the same religion as you. There just won't be enough people around you to sort through enough mates to find someone you're compatible with, that your personalities are able to resonate with, and you have enough kind of shared interests that you can get along. If you grew up prior to 2008, you knew not to tell girls you like nerd shit. But then we've been telling boys that nerd stuff has always been cool, but girls have been kept out. Yeah, now girls are like, I want to be in on the nerd stuff. And then it's like, well, now it's not fun anymore. But yeah, you knew not to tell girls about that kind of stuff until way later. It's like, oh yeah, of course. And the other thing too is like, video games weren't nerdy. Everyone played video games. So it was like, oh, your boyfriend plays Grand Theft Auto. It's like, yeah. Everyone plays that. The deep nerd stuff, like Dungeons and Dragons, that was like, that was woman repellent. You didn't tell anyone you played that. Gavin McInnes went on Friday Night Tights to bash everyone there for being man-children into comics and video games. Then discovered that they were all married and all but two had children. Yeah. Okay, what are they supposed to be into, Gavin? What are you into? I don't know what he's into. What's he into? Having a political podcast? I don't know what he's into. What are they supposed to be doing? What are they supposed to enjoy? I only watch black and white movies and smoke cigars. And I only read Dostoevsky. Great. What if you don't like Dostoevsky? Or what if you find it boring? The silliest meta ever is like, you should be into sports instead of video games. Sports don't get you in shape, dude. Like, if you're a gamer and you spend 30 minutes a day at the gym, you're going to be doing better than a typical football fan. We got to be real, right? Like, just liking sports is not a manly thing. There's nothing masculine about watching other people bash themselves to death. Or other people do physical activity. How is that masculine? You're just going to the Coliseum. Like, who cares about that? That's not masculine. Join the army maybe. Maybe everybody's supposed to join the army. But would you join the army with Joe Biden as president? Or Kamala Harris? Would you join the army with Kamala Harris as chief? Commander-in-Chief? Kamala Harris? Are you signing up for that? Man, most of the guys I knew who are out now, they're like, oh yeah, if I had a commission and she got elected, I'd resign it immediately. It's like, I don't even care how many years I'm in, because people will try to get in for enough years to get their retirement. A husband of one of my wife's friends basically left the Navy a year before retirement because he wouldn't take the shot. He wouldn't do it. He's like, I'm not doing it. You can discharge me. I'm not doing it. I'm not putting that crap in my body. Paid the price. Like, you pay the price. A lot of people aren't willing to pay that price. But if you're thinking of joining, I don't know any young man that looks at Joe Biden or Kamala Harris and is like, yeah, I'm going to join the army. That's where I'm going to get to learn to be a man. That's where I'm going to get adventure. That's where I'm going to do important things for my country. That's where I'm going to serve my country. No, I don't want to be their lackey. I don't want to go kill people for them, for Kamala Harris. Yeah. There's also something to be said about Walsh pushing young men into being economic units for society that clearly doesn't want them to succeed. Another problem with these guys is, like, just circling back around to creativity and art. They're not artists. They're not creative at all. So they don't understand this stuff. It's just, it bounces off their head. They just don't get it. They only think of the valuation as like, is the art making you money? Then why are you doing it? That's the only valuation, is money or some other thing like that. You can't express yourself with art. Art doesn't have a meaning. It doesn't point to the good. There's also something to say about Walsh pushing young men into being economic units for a society that clearly doesn't want them to. Yes. What are they supposed to do? Oh, let me go work the rat race job so that I can, what? Do what with it? Make money for people that hate me? Why would I do that? When his preconceptions had been proved wrong and he had no ammunition to bash them with, he unzipped his pants and peed on his desk live on stream, proving he was the childish one. Yeah, that's the most prurient thing I can imagine. What a retarded thing to do. Gavin McInnes is a hipster dork who talks about being manly man, but look at how he grooms himself. Yeah, this is a good example of men the last couple of years, men wearing beards to be manly. I have a beard. It's not like a big, but they grow like a long beard. They grow like an ortho beard to try to show how manly they are. It's kind of like what women do when they decide they're trans men. Is they put on the appearance of a male as a costume. So they're wearing a costume of what they think it is to be manly. They're like, okay, well, you have testosterone that causes you to grow a beard. So growing a cool beard, growing a big beard means you're like more masculine. It's like, that doesn't follow. There's nothing special about growing a beard or not growing a beard. Okay. Does not growing a beard, how does that change your actions? There are Japanese men who can't grow thick beards, but they were amazing warriors in battle. So silly, right? George Washington shaved his face. Was he not masculine because he didn't have a beard? Right? It's a costume that they wear. And Gavin McInnes is great too because he wears these awful ill-fitting suits that he thinks is okay. Well, like successful men wear suits, therefore I'll wear a suit. It's like, but the successful men who wear suits look at your suit and they think it's stupid because it looks really bad on you. It's not cut right. You look like you put on a suit meant for a 150-pound man and you're 200 pounds, right? You don't look like a king. You look like a dork. And I'm going to cut my hair in this certain way. I'm going to cut it short. Right? I have long hair. Because I don't give a shit. But you know, cuts his beard. It's all just a costume. It's a costume. Yeah. Well, I met my husband through school because I was friends with his cousin. I met my wife at school. I met my wife in college. But I met her in 2002 or something, right? We didn't get married till a lot later, which is a big mistake, but yeah, that's a whole nother story. I'm honestly white-pilled that 40% of couples can still meet offline. Better odds than I thought, yeah. I think for a lot of men who are in despair, they don't have like a big real world that they're in to meet women. And when they meet them, they don't really, our society doesn't have a good set of formal procedures to go from, I have met you and I'm acquainted with you to we're in a romantic relationship. What happens is people fall through different layers of casual and serious relationship until they stall out at a certain point. They waste a lot of time doing it. You hear about women complaining, it's like, the eternal boyfriend, the boyfriend who never pops the question, is that the boyfriend fell to a certain level of seriousness with the monogamous relationship where he was comfortable. And so he's never going to move from that position because he gets everything he wants out of it. Maybe he lives with her, he has sex with her. Why would he marry her? He wouldn't, right? There's no formal process for getting out of that. And so men meet a woman, they like her, they spend time with her, they maybe go to coffee with her, they hang out with her. When does she become your girlfriend? It's hard, right? We just kind of flop around like fishes until somebody is like, are we dating? Are we dating each other? I don't know. Are we hooking up? What's going on? Did we had sex, but are we in a relation? Like, it's helter skelter. I wanted to join the Air Force when I was a kid. Bush totally killed that idea and desire. I did 6 years under Obama, dropped a lot of bombs on deployment. Wish I dropped out of school and had kids earlier instead of staying in. I'm sorry. As an Australian, I hope Trump wins. If I could vote, I'd vote Trump. You can. No one's stopping you. Here's the thing. It's illegal to throw out the votes of non-citizens, depending on where you're at. So yeah, non-citizens can vote. It's illegal. Illegal. No one's checking. You just show up, register the day of, put in a vote for whoever you want. There's no way to throw it out. There's no way to check that. It's illegal in a lot of places to check it. I probably wouldn't want to be in the army under FDR, so you could guess how I feel about joining up with the current circus. Yeah. You could mail in a ballot, print one out in Australia, and you can actually do it at the State Department. I'm not going to tell anyone how to commit voter fraud, and I would never instruct anyone to do it. I'm completely joking. This is a joke for all legal purposes. But you can print out a ballot and mail it in from the State Department. People can do that. So, yeah, foreigners can vote. Just mail in the ballots. I don't know if those actually get counted, but yeah, you can figure it out. Abraham Lincoln grew a beard after an 11-year-old girl told him in a letter that growing one would help him get elected. Well, might have worked. Might have worked. Depending on the state, people love illegals voting, yeah. The young men in laws tell me that going to college has put them off women for now. The scene there is apparently really awful. I've heard that too. I didn't love the dating scene in college, to be honest. And reflecting on it, and I've given this advice before, it has a lot to do with where you're looking for companionship as a male or a female. So back in my college days, where was I meeting women? Well, I met them at parties. If you meet a girl at a frat party, what kind of girl are you meeting? Not the kind you're going to want to stick with for a long time. I met them at parties. I met them at bars. Or I met them as part of my education. I met them in classes. So if you meet them in classes, you automatically have something in common, especially I'm a music student. My wife was a music student. Okay. I knew lots of people that got married to other musicians in the music department at Fresno State, now the School of Music. Good or bad. Doesn't really matter. But you had something in common. But what else did I have in common with them? Almost nothing. Like politically, it's funny because the composition department, all the composers, we were all like right-wing trad guys. We were all very right-wing. All of us, we were right-wing. Maybe there was one guy who was lefty. Maybe one lefty dude. Otherwise, it was all right-wing men. No women in the composition program. Not a single female. And none of them we were all like mega conservative. And our teacher was like postmodernist. He's a great guy. Robert Strizich was an amazing guy, but he was definitely more on the left-hand side. But yeah, most of the people in the music department, I had nothing in common with them other than the fact that we both studied music. No religion, no culture in common, just nothing in common. So it was really, that's how it was. Like, where was I meeting people? Like, I needed to be meeting women maybe in church, and I did try that, but there's whole other layers to that too. Yeah, it was a really bad scene. It was a bad scene 20 years ago. It's probably much worse now. But yeah, if I met a woman at a bar, why would I expect her to have values for a long-term partner? Like, that was stupid. It was really stupid to think that way. Like, I met this girl, but she's like a hippie or like really, maybe she's promiscuous or something. Like, I don't want that. It's like, you're only going to places where that's the kind of person you're going to meet. Like, you have to be wiser about it. What do you think of Moroccan designs? They're abstract but ornate, but can have a lot of work and skill to put in them. So yeah, like a lot of Muslim designs that are they're not images of things. They're beautiful. Absolutely, they're art and very creative. Do they have an inspiration? Yes. Do they have valuation? Absolutely. Right? And they have a purpose to their existence to be art. Do they require effort? Yes. Is there skill? Absolutely. Is there mathematical precision in it? You bet. Is there a will to make it? Is there a will behind it? A desire to make something beautiful? Yes. they're engaging, they're willing to make it. So they're great. You know, a lot of Muslim artistic decorations are like that because you're trying to avoid the use of images. That's not universal in Islam, by the way. There are like Islamic images that are out there, but you know, I'm trying to think which, but anyway, you know, images are certainly images of the Prophet are prohibited, but images in general of like different teachers, that's more suppressed, I think, in Sunni Islam these days. So yeah, but it's great. You know, I think that stuff is great. I saw a collage of about 6 photos like that. Pretty funny stuff. A collage of about 6 photos like that. I really love Latin architecture, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. Yeah, like that stuff too. Anyway, I'm about out of time. So we've talked about everything. We even talked about politics. You know, I kind of know it's okay if you don't have my political leanings, by the way. But I do like to talk about how art intersects this. The last thing I would talk about, we already touched on it. Sony's closing Concord Studio, the studio that made Concord. Okay, we talked about Dragon Age. I'll just talk briefly about Concord before we go. So that studio, they closed it. I saw this big lament over, what about the poor devs who worked on this? It's like they got compensated already. That's the way wages work, is that you pay wages for someone as they're doing the work, and then if you're the owner, you keep the profits. They've already earned their share of the profits. In this case, the game produced no profits, but they got paid for a year's worth of work anyway. The devs have already been compensated for their work. Yes, maybe their jobs are going away. A lot of those jobs would have gone away anyway. They would have gotten laid off anyway because that's standard business practice in the gaming industry. So a lot of them would have just lost their jobs anyway. I've knocked something off the table here. I don't know what. Oh, it's a cable. Yeah. A lot of them would have lost their jobs anyway. Not a big deal. And if you make a business and that business fails, yeah, everyone loses their job. So if you're making a product that fails, lots of people had a job making that product and then they lose that job because the business goes away. So Sony is not the bad guy for closing a studio which made the biggest flop in the history of the universe. Okay. The devs hold some responsibility because they made the product and they got paid for it. Really, them just losing their jobs is fine. Like if Sony were to sue them for money for doing a bad job, that would be a big negative consequence. But there's no real super strong negative consequence for the massive failure of Concord. I don't feel at all bad about the devs. They made the game and they got compensated to make the game for 8 years worth of development. The budget was in the hundreds of millions of dollars, certainly, and then produced nothing, produced no value out of it. But they still got paid. That's not the case for an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur has his money at risk at all times. So I feel bad if an entrepreneur strikes out. I don't feel bad if like a giant megalithic corporation has a big flop and all the employees got paid to do the work anyway. You know what I mean? So I'll read this tweet because I thought it was a really funny tweet that I made up, because I think this was, I think this was Modern Vintage Gamer. Here, I'll just show this to you. Where is it? Modern Vintage Gamer. I love this industry. You get one shot, and if you F it up, your whole studio is gone. An ambitious young pitcher steps up to the mound. The crowd goes wild. ESPN has been hyping this kid up for years. The owner paid him a $200 million salary in advance to keep him on the team. Its future rests on the surety of his cosmic, game-defining performance. Now is the day, the most televised baseball game in the history of Earth. The pitcher winds up. A hush settles over the packed stadium. He breaks the world record for fastest pitch, but it goes wild. It misses the plate. It misses the catcher. It snaps through the net and hits a toddler in the head, killing him instantly. Then ricochets into the owner's booth where it strikes him in the neck, causing a stroke. It then miraculously bounces against the owner's wife's head. Delirious from the concussion, she strips off all her clothes and spreads her cheeks for the many live cameras, including the Jumbotron operator, zoomed in on the horror. The organist, seeing what has just happened, has a heart attack. It was his last day before retirement. He crashes through the window and lands on an elderly nun being treated to a game in celebration of her 100th birthday. The fall breaks her neck. The entire crowd begins booing. The shock is such that many people begin to vomit or lose their bowels uncontrollably. Both benches empty. By the time the police are able to reestablish order, several players are unconscious and have broken bones. All players on both teams are suspended indefinitely. The pitcher stands on the mound, urging the audience to cheer for him, oblivious to the chaos around him. The owner's wife, regaining herself and seeing her shame on the Jumbotron, shouts, "You're fired!" Sucks that he only got one shot. Sucks that he only got one shot. I think I'll leave it with that. Are you ready for the outcome of the election? Nope. That's assuming the election will be over next week. It's going to be wild, guys. Be prepared. I'm expecting riots and all kinds of chaos. And the PS5 Pro is going to be looted nonstop from all the Best Buys. So keep an eye on Facebook Marketplace for some PS5 Pros that have been liberated from their stores, because it comes out like the day before the election. It's hard to actively care about people who hate me and insult me and then cry when no one wants to buy their game. There's no business more hostile to their own customers than gaming. Movies are pretty hostile to their own customers. That's which one is more? Which one's more hostile? Anyway, guys, I'll see you all next time. Have a great one. Same time next week. I will also have the live write on Friday at 6:30. So have a great one, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great day. I'm going to link everything real quick as I'm saying goodbye here. Let's listen to some ambient doom metal, dude. Yeah, here we go. Oh, and we got a nice ad. Hold on. Here we go. Another ad. Okay, boom. Here we go. Some doom metal on the Fender Meteora. Okay. All right, I'm going to link everything again. Patreon. Join it. You get a book that's only been on Vela, so no one's read it yet. That's going to be November. And you can even still get October's free book, too. So it's a great time to join because you'll get 2 free books for like 1 subscription. So grab that, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great day.